Boy, is my face red. When they asked me to do this, I thought this was a face on the barroom floor. And so I wrote some jokes that were little rude, little sarcastic, little dirty. What on Rob McCartney was it? Anyway, turns out that's not what this is. And turns out this is actually an event where we respect and honor those in the media and people that have accomplished some great things, people that have had long, distinguished careers, and they don't want to hear smart-ass comments from a guy that can barely hold a job. So, so I got to switch through to this.
This is the script.
Thank you, Judy. Give Judy a round of applause. All right. Thanks for coming out here tonight. This is really I'm honored to be a part of this event here. We honor this year's honorees. I'd like to recognize the previous Hall of Fame inductees in the room tonight. Please hold your applause till the very end here, and then clap like hell. We've got Dr. Hugh Cowden is here, Gary Kerr, Dr. Dave Haberman, Dave Hamer, Jack Payne, Carol Schrader, Roseanne Shannon, Phil Johnson, and Mrs. Howard Silver is all here. Please, let's give a nice round of applause for all these past honorees. Also like to thank the Hall of Fame sponsors tonight. Dave Bushy from Marcotte Insurance, Andy Alloway with Deeb Realty, Farhan Khan from Heritage Communities, Brian Grubbles from Data Shield Corporation, Nicole Bukacek from Prime Communications Incorporated. Please give them a round of applause. This video of this evening's Hall of Fame awards will later be on YouTube. Well, then what the hell are we doing here? Go home and watch it. Anyway, it'll be on YouTube later on for your viewing pleasure. I will introduce tonight's honorees alphabetically, and each will speak after they receive their awards. In his 41 years at the Omaha World Herald, Robert Dorr was known as a bulldog reporter, but never one who growled, in print or in person. Always humble, Bob inspired colleagues who admired his thoroughness when overhearing him on phone interviews. He never let a source get away with jargony answers, said courthouse reporter Todd Cooper. He would dissect the most difficult issues and make them digestible for the readers. Bob broke a long list of news scoops. In 1966, he wrote the first definitive story about a rising Omaha investment whiz named Warren Buffett. He also wrote an expose of public financial abuses, covered court-ordered desegregation, and reported on many other big stories, such as the 1980s Franklin Community Credit Union scandal. Executive editor Mike Riley said, editors handed Bob the thorniest issues because he had earned their trust, and our readers' trust, time after time. He was as dogged as they come at seeking the truth, getting to the bottom of things through digging out and examining every relevant fact. He was equally diligent about making sure he was clear, fair-minded, and open-minded as he sorted through the most complicated and controversial matters. Bob led all of us in the newsroom through his example. Bob learned the news business from his dad, Carl, who owned the paper in Brighton, Colorado. Bob was named the Outstanding Journalism Graduate at the University of Colorado. A year later, he and his wife Betty came to Omaha, where they raised 3 sons. He served as religion writer, business reporter, and city editor, but he is most widely known as a skilled reporter. His interviews ranged from Harry Truman to Billy Graham. He could be tough on elected officials and business leaders, but his disarming, persistent style of asking questions let him be called the Lieutenant Columbo of newspaper reporters. When Bob retired in 2001, columnist Mike Kelly wrote that his colleague had reported on the famous, the not-so-famous, and the infamous. Mike called him a no-baloney reporter and a precise writer, but above all, a man of the highest honesty and decency. In his honor, the most prestigious internal award presented annually in the World Herald newsroom for dedication to journalism and exemplary professional ethics is named the Bob Dorr Award. With Mike Kelly presenting, please welcome to the Omaha Press Club Journalist of Excellence Hall of Fame, Bob Dorr.
Thank you. Really am honored beyond
anything you can imagine. This is what a thrill it is to do the job you love and then be honored for it, for Pete's sake. I want to thank a lot of people, and I won't do that. I'm just gonna focus on my wife, Betty, who has put up with stuff you could not believe over 41 years, and all the lies that I was going to be home in 15 minutes, and I would get there in an hour and a half. So I'd like Betty to stand up and just, you can all see. Actually, I didn't come to Omaha directly from Colorado. I spent a little time in Arkansas first. My first job was at the daily newspaper in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And, you know, my whole life has been exciting because my work has been exciting. And it doesn't mean it's all been good. It's been bad sometimes. The first week on the job in Fort Smith, I was assigned a story to interview a black man, and I did that. And then following procedure, I filled out a form to get his picture taken to accompany the story, and turned it into the managing editor, who was kind of apologetic, and that I should say first, I'm sure I'm the only Northerner on the staff of the Fort Smith Times-Record. And he explained this, and also this was in 1959, back in antiquity. The sweeping civil rights legislation of the 1960s had not been passed yet. He said that we don't run pictures of Negroes in the Fort Smith Times-Record. So that's how I started, and spent a year in Fort Smith, came up to Omaha, and got my dream job, which was general assignment reporter on a major metropolitan newspaper. My specific assignment was business news, and I was the business news guy. We have a whole staff of people who do that now, but then we had one person, and I was it. And as I went about my work, I began hearing, this was in the mid-60s, 1965, 66. I began hearing stories about this young investment whiz by the name of Warren Buffett. So I gave him a call and asked him if we hadn't had any stories about his investment work in the World Herald or anywhere. And so I said, I sure would like to come and do a profile of you and your investment business. No. No way. Wouldn't do me any good. I don't even tell my own investors how I'm investing their money. And I'm certainly not going to tell you. Just there is no benefit to be gained from it. And I haven't had any stories and don't intend to have any. So I said, well, you know, I sure would like to find a way to do this story. I'm going to do it if I can figure out a way to do it. So I talked to a few people and got a hold of, although he was not very, didn't say too much about what he was doing, he did send his investors an annual letter. I got the help of ad man Dick Holland and investment broker Charlie Hyder. And they and some other friends and early investors. There were only about 100 investors at that point. Found out enough to do a pretty thorough, detailed story about what was going on and how his investment philosophies so at that point I knew I had a good story. Even as young as I was, I knew I had a good story. But I did not have an interview of Warren. So I called him up and said, could I bring you a draft of this story? I have a draft done and I'd like you to take a look at it. Well, he still was not thrilled at the idea of having any story in the Omaha World Herald. But he said, come on up. And so I did. And he made a few fixes in the draft right off my big Underwood typewriter. And we talked, and I started taking notes. And a little while later, I left and went back to the paper and inserted some new stuff. And the story ran in May 29th, 1966, World Herald. The lead of the story read, "One of the most successful investment businesses in the United States is operated in Omaha by a young man who bought his first stock at age 11. My editor liked the story and gave me a compliment later. And best of all, I got a $5 a week raise. So thank you so much for this award. I just am so humbled by it, and thank you.
You did the first story and you created a monster. For nearly a quarter of a century, Carl Keith served as a night managing editor at the Omaha World Herald. His staff produced as many as 6 editions a day. His time at newspapers in Beatrice, Hastings, and Scottsbluff gave the Cambridge, Nebraska native a viewpoint outside of Omaha. Carl also helped shape the career of many young journalists as a teacher at UNL and UNO. At his funeral in 2008, when Carl died at age 81, former colleague David Krychek eulogized, "Carl was a sculptor of journalists, sanding away our rough edges." David couldn't be here tonight, but sent Carl's wife Nadine a wonderful letter. We'll read a few excerpts. Carl was a journalist. He knew baloney when he heard it or read it. His ambling strolls through the newsroom were reassuring, not intimidating. His guidance was affable and imbued with common sense, and his terse attaboy notes posted on the nightstand clipboard were better than a cash bonus. Wally Provo, late longtime sports columnist, wrote when Carl retired in 1990, "You were the most popular and the most respected editor during my time with the paper." Former colleague Jim Flannery told us Carl had to be both editor and teacher. His office door always was open. He was coach, confidant, critic, and conscience of the newspaper. His night copy desk could well have been called the Carl Keith School of Journalistic Inquiry. Joanne Stewart, assistant managing editor, recently told us, "Perhaps Carl's greatest work in the World Herald newsroom was as teacher and mentor. He shaped the careers of many young journalists. I count myself among those lucky ones, coaching, challenging, and providing opportunities to succeed. He was especially committed to supporting women in roles of leadership and importance in the newsroom." Don Summerside, a longtime friend and colleague of Carl, will present the Journalists of Excellence Hall of Fame Award to Carl's wife, Nadine. Please join me in welcoming to the Omaha Press Club Journalist Excellence Hall of Fame, Nadine Keith.
Thank you.
Now me.
Okay. You want to take it back?
I'll take it back for you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
will
Thank
do.
you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot to the Omaha Press Club for this honor for Carl, and to our many friends who are here to join in this celebration this evening. Carl actually had some close connections to the Press Club, besides the time that he spent on a bar stool over there. He was a longtime member of the cast of the Press Club show. In fact, our first date was to an Omaha Press Club show at Peony Park. He sang a parody, a song about the what Alan Tubac has called the World Herald's second favorite topic, water. What a way to start a romance. He also, at the time we were married, was on the board of the Press Club and would come home from those board meetings talking about the importance of watching the nickels and dimes. In other words, it does pay to sweat the small stuff. And I think he felt the same thing about the paper, although it may be true that he didn't think there was really any small stuff at the paper. The comments you heard about Carl as a teacher reflect what I believe was his favorite role in the classroom or in the newsroom. He saw himself as a teacher. He loved newspapers and he loved journalists, and he would be honored to be inducted today alongside his World Herald alums, Bob Dorr and Mary McGrath, two reporters who he greatly admired. I think Carl liked newspapering because every day is a fresh start. You praise what was done right, you correct what went wrong, and you start clean the next morning with the morning edition. I think the World Herald is a better paper today because of Carl Key's 30 years there. I'm very appreciative of this recognition of his career in the field of journalism. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. The early 1960s saw the impact of local broadcast newsrooms grow by leaps and bounds. Young journalists were pushing the envelope of what radio and TV news could mean for communities and the people who live in them. That's when Joe McCartney, a recent grad of the then University of Omaha, burst onto the journalism scene as a reporter and producer at WOW Radio and Television. He brought with him a voracious appetite for how government works and a unique empathy for how everyday people were affected by government action or the lack of it. His documentary, The Face of the People, Urban Renewal, resulted in slum clearance in the area where the CenturyLink Center now stands. Another effort, The Children's Storm, followed a fatal flash flood on Hell Creek, providing impetus for creation of a modern flood control system in our area. Joe's career next took him back to his alma mater as a faculty member in the journalism department. Joe was the utility player back then, teaching photography, news, film, and documentaries, broadcast news writing, public relations, and reporting public affairs. His former students are quick to praise. From former TV news producer John Prescott, Joe was the journalism teacher who communicated just how much fun our business could be. When you are considering whether you want a lifetime career in journalism, that's invaluable. Larry King, Vice President of News and Content at the Omaha World Herald, recalls, Joe McCartney encouraged his students to be courageous in going after tough stories. He taught us to be professional, courteous, and thorough, but never timid. Joe left UNO in 1978 to go working on the railroad, and 2 years later headed up Union Pacific's Public Relations and Advertising Department. In 1990, he founded the McCartney Group, a public relations agency, and retired in 1999. To list Joe's many writing, editing, and public relations accomplishments, as well as his unique contributions to local agencies and nonprofits, would take hours that we don't have tonight. But we certainly do have time for another of his former students, Carol Schrader, to present his award. Please welcome to the Omaha Press Club Journalist Excellence Hall of Fame, Joe McCartney.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
talk.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Bob. Hang on to that, will you? I know. One, I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee and the dinner sponsors and congratulate the other inductees. This will be short and sweet. Shorter and sweeter. I could introduce those people who started that spontaneous applause, but I would be taking up too much of my time, and also I think of them as unindicted co-conspirators. I was asked to speak a little bit on journalism itself, and upon the Hall of Fame. And I have just a short moments here. The secret of fame is to take everything that has happened in your entire life, make it seem that it happened in the last 2 weeks. I have been fortunate to have been in the right place at the right time several times over. Floods, fires, scandal, embezzlement, and assorted disasters just seem to come my way. When you scratch a journalist, you find a reformer. That's mostly true. Journalists have an obligation to be the annoying personalities that they usually are. That's the way it should be. Being a reporter was a good experience. I sincerely believe that if it isn't written down, it didn't happen. And that goes back to when the Old Testament was new. I earned a master's in journalism and mass comm at the University of Minnesota, just in time to teach reporting at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. I have always been proud of my students, with some exceptions, because they know how to cover City Hall, the police station, and other areas of government, including SIDs.
Yes.
That is not an inside joke. One of Bob Doerr's signal reporting jobs was on SIDs, and I used him as an example in the class as to do it right. Several years ago, Omaha television was the subject of federal hearings. One of our local executives was asked, what special programming was done for children? He answered, the news. The examiner said, the news? Yes, said Omaha, the news is for everyone. Thank you for this honor.
Thank you, Joe. Rob McCartney was the MC 7 years ago at the very first OPC Hall of Fame ceremony. Now he's back as an honoree. And according to people close to him, the award is well deserved. I'm not that close. I'm not so sure. KETV News Director Roseanne Shannon tells us, Rob is the real deal. He's a top-notch journalist and a kind, principled man. He cares about our community, our profession, and his family. I'm so proud to work with him on KETV News Watch 7's team. His co-anchor, Brandy Peterson, sent us this message. In our newsroom, he is a respected leader, a true newsman, and a friend to everyone. He inspires us with his stories, makes us want to be better as our mentor, and treats everyone as an equal, though he is truly a step above. Now in his 30th year as a television journalist, Rob's broadcasting career began at UNL radio stations while he was a student. His talent was spotted by NTV in Kearney, where he became assistant sports director and farm director. His next job was at KOLN KGIN TV in Lincoln, where he was newscast producer, reporter, and anchor. In 1992, KETV called looking for a Capitol Bureau chief. Rob later moved to Omaha and has anchored KETV newscasts 7 and 6 and 10 for almost 20 years. He and his team have won numerous broadcast journalism awards. In April, Rob was honored by UNL's College of Journalism and Mass Communications with an Alumni Award of Excellence for his significant contributions to broadcasting. His reporting career has taken him inside the White House and inside a burning house. He's flown on a Blue Angels flight and interviewed 2 U.S. presidents. He leads KETV's Crime Stoppers program. KETV Bureau Chief Andrew Ozaki, who has worked with Rob for almost 20 years, is here tonight to present his award. Here's what he said about Rob. I can describe him in 2 words, trust and humility. You trust his knowledge. You trust the caring manner in which he approaches every assignment. You trust his accuracy and fairness, and even though he has the look and presence of a news anchor, it's never about him. I once heard someone tell me, if only he knew how good he is. Hopefully, this award will let him know in a small way just how good he is. Please welcome to the Omaha Press Club Journalism of Excellence Hall of Fame, Rob McCartney.
Typical TV people looking for the light.
Should you be standing up on something? Oh, thanks, Tom, I think. Watch out, that window behind you opens up. Trust me, I checked it earlier. Hey, Joe, my dad asked me a second ago, he said, Joe McCartney, is he your father? Mom? News guys always trying to figure out stuff, always learning new information. I want to thank the stations that have taken a chance on me in the past and continue to NTV, 1011, KETV, Roseanne, Ariel, thanks very much for not kicking me to the curb yet. It really is a team effort, and Roseanne, I know you said this a couple years ago when you were inducted in the Hall of Fame. It is a team effort. We try to do that every day. Very evident on Tuesday night. We had a little bit of a storm, came through. That thing, we were on the air about 7 hours. Bill Ramby, Holly McCarthy, headlining our coverage, and then Brandy and I filling in when we could, and had all the other reporters joining in. Nice. But it was 7 hours. There's kind of a joke that goes around. We have the Iron Pants Award. If you're stuck on the set. But I guarantee if there had not been a commercial break soon, it would be the Rusty Pants Award. Enjoy your dinner later. I do want to thank also the viewers who put up with all the bad puns. They think they're bad. I think they're good puns over the years. And also my friends from Omaha, from Lincoln, from Papillion, who have come in and supporting me and have supported throughout the years. After 30 plus years and some more that you've learned in journalism, you learn a couple things. Well, I've learned one thing, but other people learn more. One thing is technology changes. I mean, we were tweeting like crazy Tuesday, which if you had asked me or told me a couple years ago, you're going to be tweeting on the set next to Brandy Peterson, I probably would have said, don't tell my wife. But, kidding, honey. But we tweet all the time. Facebook, the technology is changing so rapidly, but the thing that doesn't change and hasn't changed is the core of journalism. We still try to get and tell good stories. We still try to keep you safe in storms. We still try to uncover information. And basically what we wanted to get out to people is that we are still part of the community. A lot of times people think if you're on television, you're not in the part of the community. But trust me, anybody sees me at Target with a ball cap on like it was this afternoon, I'm part of the community. You're part of the community. And that's one of the important things that I think journalists coming in now need to know. I think not only are you part of the community, you have to be part of the community. And that's why I love to volunteer quite a bit. I do it all the time. My son, matter of fact, Grayson today said in the car, he goes, you choose to do a lot of that volunteering on your own. You don't have to do it. And yes, I choose to do it. I learned that from my father. I don't know if any of you have met Colonel Bob. That man's a force of nature. And I learned that from him, and I appreciate it. I learned that volunteering aspect, Dad. Thanks. But to go with that, and this won't be terribly long, but to go with that, I've also learned patience. Don't you laugh, kids. I have learned patience, and I learned patience from my mother. And Mom's right there. And Mom, for Christ's sake, all the times you put up with us kids when he was out fighting wars, I mean, thank you very much, because you've taught me patience. And I'm glad y'all are here to see me get this award. I also learned patience from my wife and my kids. They don't believe it, but I am a patient man. Bob, when you said you're home in 15 minutes, I got the stink eye from my family, because I still do that. I'll be home, I swear. Dinner 7, you bet, yeah. 7:20, it's close enough, don't you think? I mean, journalists work and we run on our own schedules. We run on the schedules that the rest of the world makes us run on. And damn it, we wouldn't have it any other way. We love it, and I thank you all for the award, because it does mean quite a bit. Thank you.
If I could just add something to what Rob said about their storm coverage on Tuesday night, we carry their audio on 1290 Coil, and we got a lot of great response from the coverage of what you guys did, and Bill Ranby and the Dave Roberts interview. And if you haven't seen the Dave Roberts interview, YouTube it. Trust me, yeah, it was wonderful. It was, as I said, it was too bad because I mean they all worked so hard. The whole newsroom worked so hard, and Bill Ranby did such a great job in that. And after all is said and done, it was Dave Roberts talking to some guy down on 13th Street or whatever. Yeah, that was beautiful. Anyway, but they did an incredible job. Okay, next. We wanted to induct Mary McGrath into the Press Club's Hall of Fame in years past. After all, she's a highly respected pioneer journalist who led the way for women in the field. But she's been too busy accepting other awards over the years. Both Creighton University and UNO have honored Mary with Lifetime Achievement Awards. 9 years ago, right here in this room, Mary was awarded a Career Achievement Award from the Omaha Press Club Foundation. 2 years ago, she was inducted into the Nebraska Press Women's Journalist Hall of Fame. Mary and Bob Dorr shared a Nebraska Press Association Sweepstakes Award in 1980, the state's top AP award. Dr. Eileen Worth, now at Creighton, carpooled with Mary to their jobs at the World Herald for about 10 years. Eileen sent us a message about her former colleague. She said, Mary was a combination of mentor and guardian angel and kept a lot of us out of trouble. We came out of school thinking we could change the world, and Mary was really the woman who broke through the gender barrier in Omaha. She taught many of us how to do it effectively. Mary made it impossible for anyone who was fair-minded to look at her as anything but an incredibly competent, dedicated reporter. Mary majored in journalism at Creighton and was editor of the student newspaper, the Praytonian. She graduated in 1956 and joined the Council Bluffs Nonpareil, where she covered major news. A year later, she took a job at the World Herald in what was then the women's news section, where she covered club news for 10 years. In 1967, Mary became the newspaper's first full-time woman in city news since World War II. For 20 years, her primary beat was a medical and health reporter. She was at the World Herald for 43 years before retiring in 2000. Dave Haberman was a professor at Creighton when Mary was a student. He tells us, Mary was a bright star as a student. She appreciated the value of her education and dedicated herself to getting as much as she could from it. It was wonderful that it was Mary who became the first permanent full-time woman news reporter at the World Herald. Wonderful because she was immediately recognized as intelligent, competent, and hardworking, and wonderful because she not only led by example, but generously and wisely mentored the women who soon followed her. Dr. Haberman is here tonight to present Mary's award. Please join me in welcoming to the Omaha Press Club Journalist of Excellence Hall of Fame, Mary McGrath.
Do me a favor, take that on the table for me, will you? Okay. I'll try to keep this brief. There are a lot of people here tonight that I'd like to single out, but I know what would happen if I started that. I'd have to ask to run corrections in the next edition of Beyond 30 to list all the people I'd forgotten. So I won't do that. There are a couple of groups, though, that I want to say something about. Someplace, there's a whole table filled with some of my favorite cousins. Thank you for coming. Oh, right over here, a group of my friends from Marion High School who I've come to know through my good friend Al DeMauro, who taught Latin there for, a few years. So anyhow, so that's, but it is, what I really want to do today is take just a very few minutes. As we look at the emergence, or in some cases re-emergence, of women at the World Herald and in the newsrooms across Omaha. The success is evident by the people who are in attendance here today. For example, Deanna Sands, who was honored with the same award 4 years ago, the Hall of Fame award. There are editors here and writers and photographers who I look at as proof that it can all work. But you know, it wouldn't have worked, and I'm convinced of this, but for one other group. A few months ago, Rich Janda had called together the World Herald newsroom retirees, as he does about once a month, and we have lunch. And I was sitting there, and the waitress came around, and she had a growly face, and she said to me, "What are you doing with this bunch?" And I really was taken aback. I mumbled some incoherent answer. And then I looked around. There were about 12 or 13 of us there that day. And so as I ordered the Wednesday special, I thought, yes, I am the only woman at this table. My point is this: none of this wouldn't have happened if the men at the World Herald that I worked with day in and day out hadn't been kind and accepting, hadn't shared their talent and their time, hadn't cut me in on the newsroom jokes and sometimes the hijinks, hadn't made it all work. So I feel I owe a very special thank you to the men of the World Herald, from myself and from all the women of the World Herald. Without you guys, it would never have happened. Thank you.
There they are, ladies and gentlemen, our journalists of excellence, whose names will now be engraved in our Hall of History just outside the entrance. Please give them a big round of applause for everybody who's here tonight. I can't wait till later on to meet you all up at the bar and start hearing some stories. I'm sure that's never happened here before. So anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. Enjoy your dinner. Thank you.